we have to exert our own influence. It's called the William proposal because William, he's the one who initiated it, yeah?
Okay.
All right, so what is it? It's the idea, so this, you talked about gender fluidity, yeah?
Yeah, and transgenderism.
Yeah, transgenderism, etc.
Actually, it's mostly like what they're doing to the kids in school. So,
right.
You know what I mean?
When I did my teacher training, because I did like a teacher
Adults
training.
can do what they want,
I
it's
did my
kids.
teacher training course. They instructed me that, and we have to stick by it. It's the law, isn't it? Like we can't really go against it. That whatever the child wants to identify themselves as, they have the right to do that, right? What I found confusing when I was doing the teacher training is that to what extent is that the case? So if the child is white, can he identify as black? If the child is black, can he identify as white? If the child is over 18, can he identify as under 18? If he's 14, can he have, and so on? How far does it go, and to what extent will it have a legal ramification? If a man who's
it's never ending, isn't it?
Right. So if a man who's fully grown wants to go into, for example, he wants to go into like a leisure center, and in that leisure center you have a female dressing room or a female changing room where there are children there, young girls maybe from the ages of 2 onwards. Can he go into that changing room because he identifies with being a female?
I say no.
Yeah, you see what I mean? So these are all challenges that this transgendered kind of discussion is having. And what I found interesting about this, and I've made this point before, I'll make it again, is that even feminists disagree with it. Like I was watching something from Germaine Greer. She's a well-known feminist. She wrote a book called The Female Eunuch in 1971. And she's hailed as she's still alive now. And what she said in, I think it was Newsnight or one of those programs, they were asking her about her idea of transgenderism and what does she make of it. And she was making the point that those people who, let's say, are XX, in other words, they're men that XY, that want to be XX, that want to be the women that want to be men, or vice versa, that they're not actually women. And that identifying them as women is actually demoting from women's rights, because if a man is able to say I'm a woman, a biological man is able to say I'm a woman, it undermines the whole theory of feminism.
And also, like they're now going into sporting events and winning everything.
Perfect, right? That's a great example. So with a sport. So for example, imagine someone like Ali Dawah, right? He does a transgender operation, and now he does and then he goes and competes
against me in a race.
No, he goes and competes as a boxer. He will lose every battle. That's a bad example. I'm only joking.
Pay for it.
Or imagine this man here.
He already has.
That'll be a bad advantage.
Ali Dawah.
I'm only joking. So you see what I'm trying to say. Obviously, Floyd Money Mayweather, you do a transgender operation, go and do female boxing, it will be the most unfair, advantage in all time. You know what I'm trying to say? Now the point I'm making is this:
you don't even have to have the operation, though. You can still have your body as it was.
But I don't think most.
That's what Lawrence Southern did. That's what Lawrence Southern did.
They won't accept it.
Lawrence Southern is classed as a male.
Yeah. We
She's a
agree
male.
on that.
Yeah.
I think we agree
But I
on
still
that.
can't shake her hand.
Is she a man?
Yeah, she had no surgery.
Who?
Is Lawrence Southern a man?
Yeah, she classed herself as a man.
No, but she got
No.
She's changed her birth certificate.
Yeah.
No, her passport.
Yeah.
All right.
Just to prove a point.
Yes.
Anyone can just say.
But what I was going to say to you was, what's interesting, this is the William proposal now. I'm going to put forward the William proposal.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
Oh.
So this is what all of us have to, for those who agree with us, this is what's going to happen. So they say that a child can identify in whatever way they want. No problem. We'll exploit this and we'll use this. We'll say, fine, for those Muslim children, not yet. We're not going to implement this yet. And for those right-wing children or whatever, we want to do a system where we tell the child, or we tell the teenager or the person in university, it's probably better for those who have self-autonomy, over the age of 18, We tell those guys to identify themselves differently every day or every other day, so much so that it confuses the administration. So today I'm a he, today I'm a she, today I'm a it, and so on. Now the administration has two options. Yes, the administration has two options. They'll get confused. Yes, they will get confused. Either they'll make a mistake. So, can you come over here? And she, he, and they'll get the pronouns mixed up. If they get the pronouns mixed up, they make a mistake, then we punish them. We say, how can you make a mistake? You're identifying me in a way I don't want to be identified. If they don't make a mistake, and they maintain and they keep their memory in place and these things, then we'll keep changing it for them. But they will feel like this is an administrative disaster because they can't keep hold of who's what.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, it shows you the extreme thinking. I mean, if we take this idea to its extreme, how it will play out. So we might as well speed up the process in implementation. So it becomes so unimplementable that they'll either have to do one of two things. One is they'll say, listen, you're a he, and that's it. And if they do that, it will defeat the purpose completely.
Yeah.
And if they do that, they've lost the battle. Or two, they try their best and they keep apologizing for getting it wrong. But then when they keep getting it wrong, we start hitting them with court orders and suing the school and this and that. Now, this is not something we're going to do straight away. But if this we're just threatening with our influence here.
When are you going to launch
We'll launch this when there's formal legislation. Yes, we will launch this when there is a formal legislation which we find is diabolical enough for us to launch this. And if it affects us I think we're nearly there, but we have to sit together, you know, the team
The far right.
and the community have to come with us,
Join forces.
and we have to join, and we have to.
Non-Muslims can do it as well.
Everyone will do.
Yeah, everybody.
Yes, and we will do.
That
Yes,
would be
yeah.
interesting.
It will be very good. Yeah.
I mean, I believe the left will eat themselves eventually.
No,
with
this
all
will
the
destroy.
things.
This
Yeah.
will destroy the left, the leftist agenda. This will be too much for them to deal with. Administratively, it's too much.
Playing them at their own game.
Oh yeah. So we'll do what they want.
Unisex pronouns.
We'll do what they want.
Like unisex pronouns is just
The William proposal, when it comes into play, what will happen is it will cause disruption up and down the country in the United Kingdom. So much so that there will have to be a revisiting of either legislation or otherwise. We'll have to deal with this.
Maybe just go back to basics, you know.
Because let me tell you
easy.
something. I didn't. What's your name, sorry?
Sarah.
Oh, Dara. I was going to say to you that this is one of the worst things you can do to a language. Because fundamentally, the most important things, arguably, in a language are the pronouns.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know, if I say he, she, it, the English language has a multiplicity of pronouns, like possessive pronoun, mine, and so on. Now, if we are messing around with the language, then it will make the language meaningless. And if we make a language meaningless, then it loses its currency, just like a currency, like the pound or dollar. You know do you know when the dollar becomes meaningless? When demand outstrips supply.
Yeah.
Because the currency is based on demand and supply. Before it used to be based on the gold depositories, etc. Now it's based on demand and supply. So in the same way as currency can become less valuable, language itself can become less valuable. And when does language become less valuable? When it loses its purpose.
Yeah.
And when does language lose its purpose? When it cannot be used to refer to things which are rudimentary in terms of signaling, because all languages are signaling. I want to tell you what this is. I want to tell you what that is.
How are the French going to cope? Because they put even like their tables
Yeah.
and chairs are like female and male. And how the hell are they going to cope?
No. This
they'll
will not.
paint it a different colour
They can't deal with this. This is. I mean, the French is something else. I don't know the politics there, to be
I
honest
don't
with you.
speak French, but like in their language, they have la and le, and like that's male and female. But even for objects.
Yeah, we have that in Arabic as well, right?
Okay.
We'll never introduce it. This will never come to the Middle East. It will be rejected, I tell you, yeah? Because the language is fixed, in a sense. We're not talking about the dialects, but the old Arabic language is fixed. No one's going to deal with that, change that. But what we're saying is that if you start using pronouns inappropriately, right, then what will happen is the language will lose its value. So we need to, right, seriously preserve the English language, because it's going to, I mean, there are two extremes. I won't even call them extremes. There are different ways of dealing with language. In you mentioned France. They have committees or something, right, which basically decides to what extent language can change and so on. So you can't just introduce a new word into the French language.
Yeah.
But English is different. You can introduce new words into the English. It's much more malleable, much more flexible. That's good because it allows us to communicate more things, but it can be problematic in so much as now the language is changing, so it becomes unrecognizable in the future. So it becomes a different language. Now, that's not a problem compared to this, where pronouns become irrelevant. Do you see what I'm saying? So we have so much at stake here with this. people are just going into the less. It's not as easy as just saying let's let anyone identify with whatever they want to identify with,
Yeah.
right? And there's racial implications in this as well. There's racial implications because imagine if someone who's like a white man, he wants to identify with being an ethnic Jew, for example. Says, look, the Holocaust happened to my great grandparents. Well, that's a false.
That's a mega lie.
Yeah, so that right. Or if it's a white boy in the school and he wants to say I'm black.
There's a woman in America called Rachel Dolezal or something. She's white and she identified as black, but she lied and told everyone. I mean, look her up. It's
Yeah, well, these are issues because then it robs a community of their historical memories.
But this is what comes down
Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Human rights, and individual or collective. You know who's talking about it, remember? Because you know he said human rights.
Yeah, that's something else. But we'll mention that another. But you see what I'm trying to say? Because you have communities which they have a right to their historical memories. Black people have a right to their historical memory.
Yeah.
Black people have a right to say, okay, well, we've been oppressed as a result of slavery, etc. And that was at the hands of X, Y, and Z people, right? Now, if white people can say the same thing and claim that heritage for themselves, then it defeats the purpose, right, of a community having a shared collective memory, a historical memory in this case, or Jewish people.
Were slaves as well.
Yeah, of course not. And many black people sold other black people and so on. Yeah.
There's still a black slave trade going on now. I think
Yes,
there's open air markets in, where is it, Lebanon?
Libya.
Libya, that's it.
Yeah, but also in the United Kingdom and the United States, it's human trafficking. When I came back from Turkey, I saw something in the Heathrow. It's like, slavery still exists, and they had this picture and whatever. I mean, human trafficking is slavery. They even have an anti-slavery act in Britain, which is reviewed on an annual basis, and it shows you how many people from ethnic minorities are being put into this process of human trafficking. But the point I'm making is, this whole thing of gender fluidity is problematic on so many levels. I had a discussion with transgender people here before, and I said to them, I said, what are you? And I've got the video still up on my channel, and the woman, the person said, she said, he said, they said,
We said.
He said.
she said, look, I'm non-binary. Is that what she said? But non-binary, is that what it's called?
I don't know.
Where they're not male nor female.
Yeah.
I said, so what are you then? She goes, I'm a mixture of both. So I said, okay, can you explain to me?
Hermaphrodite then.
No, not a biological one, but a social
right, yeah,
hermaphrodite, if you
right,
like. So I asked, what is, how do you know when you're a man and how do you know when you're a woman? So I was waiting for the response, because this is going to be, this is the check. And whatever she says is going to be the checkmate, right? Whatever he says, whatever they say. So she said, he said, they said. She said that because when I feel like manly is when I want to do things like play football or whatever, and when I feel like a woman is when I want to do cooking and so on, right? So I said, really? I said, I thought those were social constructions.
Yeah, I know plenty of men who love to cook.
No, I thought those were social constructions. So if, for example, a binary person says, I'm a man, I'm a woman, then they've defined masculinity and femininity. They've defined manhood and femalehood. They've defined being a man and being a woman. The question is that an intuitive discovery, a biological one, or is it a social one? Now, if you say it's intuitive, you have to prove it. I mean, how comes we don't have this shared experience? If you say it's biological, then you agree to biological difference then. If you say it's social or sociological, in that case, we say to you, then it's all socially constructed. So we don't have a right. You don't have a right to put this forward, because your whole argument against the patriarchal society is that you have men abusing women, etc., and that femininity is a social construct, and you're not born a woman, you're made one, and so on. So whatever they say, they're in trouble. And that's the problem.
Have you noticed that it's a lot of men who want to become women, and not that many women want to become men? I don't understand. Why is it so?
Well, I don't know.
It's weird.
Yes.
It's like mostly men who want to become women.
I thought about the same thing.
Is that right? I mean, I haven't looked at the numbers.
If you look at all the celebrities who are doing it, and it seems to be, most. I'm sure there are some. I know Cher's daughter became a man, or Cher.
Oh, the old singer.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember her.
That's the only trans man I know of.
Huh?
That's the only trans
Oh, she a man?
man
She a man
I know.
now?
No. The daughter.
Oh.
She had a daughter called Chastity, and the daughter changed, had the operation and everything. It's now a man, and that's the only trans man I know of. All the others are trans women. They're all like, it seems to be.
Well, I mean, because I think it's difficult for. Well, a man is a little bit more difficult to emulate, maybe. I mean, except if we talk about Lidawah.
One's easy to emulate.
No, but it's probably, I have no idea. I haven't looked at the data, I can't comment on that. But, I mean, whatever it is, I mean, the point is, if it's okay, and this is another question now, this is going to allow for a reversal of what they call pedophilia laws. You know why? Let me explain to you. Because if they say to you, well, you can identify with whatever you want. Because I asked the woman, I said to her, look, can I identify with being an animal? Can I be a lion?
What about
Can I be a bear?
What about donkey?
No, that's already taken. It's already taken from Alidawa. No, but here's the thing. So, should I be allowed? If I have an infinite ability, yes, to keep changing my identification according to my volition, right? So shouldn't that allow me now, let's say if I'm a 50-year-old man, to identify as, let's say, a 15-year-old boy? And let's say I'm 13, let's say I'm 18, and science was there. If I say I'm 18 years old, yes, and I want to say I'm 13, I come to school, and I say, look, because it can be in the same school, by the way, you have 6 forms in schools. It goes up to 17 or 18 years old in some cases, yeah? So say someone in school comes and says, look, to the teacher, look, today, I have decided that I want to be identified as a 12-year-old boy. Do you know, I used to work in a school, I'm not going to mention what it's called, but in South London, I worked in more than one school. One of them was in South London. And this is a true story. I'm not sure if I told you this before.
No,
yeah?
you haven't.
There was a guy, I used to work in the school, and there was a guy,
Smoking weed.
he was an African guy, like a foreign exchange student or something like this, yeah? He was from Nigeria. And I was a year 8 classroom, which means it's meant to be from 12 to 13 years old, yeah? But this guy, I kept looking at him and I thought, this guy is not 12 or 13. I swear to God. And we were speaking in the staff room. I said, look, whatever you say, I'm not going to believe you. The guy had a big jaw, big body. He would finish off anyone in that year. He would kill the year 11s. Yeah, he was some serious guy. Yeah. And I was thinking, and he had a big jaw, and it looks like he's been shaving his beard as well. Seriously, yeah. And I thought, what's going on here? Anyways, they said, look, you can't say anything. I said, no problem. I left it, yeah? I left that school some time ago, maybe 3 years ago, something like that, yeah? And I saw on, someone told me, from inside the school, we found out that guy wasn't 12 or 13. Yes, he was actually like 18, 19, or 20. and he's forged the papers.
Oh yeah, sometimes when they come to the country, they change.
Yeah, no, they changed the papers, yeah? He changed the thing. And the Nigerian embassy got involved, and so on. But I saw this guy walking around with the, younger girls and this and that, and fighting with the guys in the playground. I mean, this guy was having every advantage he wanted. Imagine an 18-year-old. I mean, in the playground, they have fights. Yeah. He was putting them in headlock, enjoying, punching, and no one would mess with him. This guy, year 8, he's an 18-year-old now.
You should have been the whistleblower.
I did. I went in there. I didn't know. I just said that, I think this guy's. I didn't have the papers in front of me.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Yeah, because then you've got to prove it.
So the point I'm making is that, but on the basis of this liberal ideas of, let's go to the far left. So surely now, if an 18-year-old comes to school, says, I want to identify as a 13-year-old. I want to go back to year 8. I want to redo my GCSEs. You know what I'm saying? I got my unclassifieds. Just like Ali Dawah. Sorry, man. I don't know why I keep picking on you today. No, I'm joking. I got my U grades and all. I want to redo the GCSEs. Whatever. Where does it stop? Because if you say you're allowed to identify with gender and even species, but why not age? Because age has a legal ramification now. Now you're messing around with age. Then the 13-year-old can if it's a under 16-year-old, because the law says if you're 2 under 16s and they have sexual intercourse,